Here we are. Guess we just need to mute this. Hello, everyone. I'll just stop typing randomly into the, as you watch me look aimlessly into the camera. I'm gonna be starting the presentation in a moment. I just wanted to make sure my live stream could get going because, as you know, I'm not the best at the technological side of my job. So again, welcome everyone. We'll start in a moment. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box and see if any of you actually arrive. Let's see. Oh, I have one watching now. Fantastic. Give me a shout out if you can let me know in the chat box who you are. I'll start the presentation in a moment. Again, just starting early. We're going to be talking about future flavors today, what I think might be happening in the market coming up in the coming years, and some tools for you to keep track of that. So we're about 5 minutes away. I'm gonna maybe just keep here engaged in the chat box until you all start trickling in. Oh, I think the one person must be Axel. How you doing, Axel? We'll start in a moment here, buddy. One segundo. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. Oh, yeah. 1 1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2. Axel, please tell me, brother, if you can't hear me or anything. I'm sure that you can. Yeah, okay. Well, here we go. I'm going to verify that everything, all systems are go. Double checking. We'll edit this out of the original video. That actually goes up. Hello, hello. Hey, buddy, can you check to make sure that my sound is going through on the channel? I just got the live stream going. Thanks, man. I'm about to start in about 5 minutes.
Perfect. And I'm going to share this link so that these people can join directly.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, everyone, I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. Got some slides prepared. We're going to go over some original material today, some stuff that's not part of our official course, extra stuff that will bring benefit to all of the students that I know are following this series, and hopefully some members of the public as well. Let's see here. Share my screen. Okay. Seems like everything is working. There we go. Sharing the screen. Now it seems that I've lost my, there we go. All right, everyone. Here we go. Hopefully the presentation looks good because I did it myself, and usually people help me make things look better. But here we go. I know that usually we're a lot more organized in our online presentations and I'm ready to go, but I hadn't done live streaming in a while, so thank you for your understanding. Future profiles. Let's talk about what it could be that is coming on the horizon. But I also want to talk a little bit about how breeders put these flavors together to begin with. How it is that blueberry becomes blueberry, how it is that we select specific mother lines to aim for specific types of results. Flavors don't come out of a void, people. They come out of a culture, they come out of hard work, they come out of knowledge and real experience. I know that a lot of people out there that don't hang out too much, or maybe you do hang out with some breeders and you just haven't been too impressed, because that happens too. The word breeder is thrown around pretty lightly nowadays. Anybody smashing pollen into a female calls themselves a breeder, and that's just not so. Breeding is intentional, breeding is scientific, breeding brings in science and the appreciation of the olfactory and gustatory dimensions of the plants. It brings all of those skills together. And basically it's a artist scientist, right? And you have to be very serious about your work. You've got to know what you're working with, and you've got to be real about what you're working with. And you know, the ways in which our community has been self-verifying, I think, is a little bit mysterious to people outside of it. I want to clarify some of that. If you haven't worked in illicit sales, you just don't really know how that world moves, how it works. And hence you probably have a lot of misconceptions about the reality, about who built that world, who makes all the money, how we make profitable businesses that distinguish themselves from all of the other street dealers. So yeah, I moved to Canada long ago to become a grower and a breeder. I learned everything from local Canadian people. And flavor profiles has been my obsession ever since I was probably 16 years old. First time I had, you know, Northern Lights. So some Americans brought it in to Mexico. I got a chance to try it for the first time. That was the first time I ever had high grade cannabis, aside from some Oaxacan that my friends had brought for me a couple of times that were pretty good buds. But I mean high grade, like indoor, modern flavor, stuff I had never experienced. The day that I tried Northern Lights was a pretty life-changing moment. But when I was closer to 17, I went to a fish show and I hung out outside the fish show for a couple of days. And those people, they showed me some stuff that was far and beyond what Northern Lights did for my palate. It was something amazing. They gave me some strawberries. They also had some bubble gums. But the strawberries that they gave me, a profile that and a plant type that out here in the West Coast, we call it strawberry jerry. A lot of people would have obtained those seed materials from, what are they called? Montreal Seed Co. They semi-stabilized some of the traits coming from those strawberry lines from down south, and they sold them into Canada. Some people grew out some of those seeds and they, you know, established the strawberry jerry name. That strawberry flavor, it's really something special to me. It really is something special, and I can't find it in today's market. I want to talk a lot about these flavor profiles that have been left behind, that have been forgotten, things that people ask me, they're like, where are we going? I say, well, do you know where we've been as a starting place? If you don't know where we've been and you're asking me where we're going, let's start with where we've been. And really, that's where I want to start today's presentation. It's going to be a really fun presentation for me in particular, because this subject matter is what I talk about with my friends all day, what I think about most of the day. I'm really obsessed with my flavors and with my babies and what I'm working on and what I'm developing next. Our agenda today is going to cover, you know, that starting point, cultivate our names as symbols. It's where I come from. It's what I was taught. It's what I've been working with. And then I want to talk about what's going on today. You know, this stuff going on in California, man, that's like super inspiring, super groundbreaking, revolutionary, beautiful stuff. Also stuff that requires a bit of more than critique. It's like, where could it go? How could we evolve it? What pieces are missing from our current perspective? Because even though things are moving really quickly and they're evolving very quickly, we still got a long ways to go, I think. Future flavors, number 3, that would be the section in which we cover everything that has to do with what isn't necessarily here, but what is going to be here, what might come back, what might recur, what might turn into something that we've never even considered or seen before. I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about really the core of what this presentation is supposed to be about, which is the future, not just what's going on now. So, cultivar names as symbols. This is the way that my mentors taught me to look at flavor profiles, to learn about flavor profiles. Names are just silly terms for the general public and for those that do not come from the underground. But if you have been subsisting from these plants for a prolonged period of time, trust me, you know them well, you know their characteristics well, you know what makes them sell, or at least what you believe made them sell, what you believe made them better. And you have ingrained these characteristics into your memory. Like, these plants are very familiar individuals in your life. They played a role. They are characters in your story. So that's, you know, the start of the story is somewhere in Central Asia. Way back in the day, we theorized that the original ancestor that diverged between Northern European hemp non-drug types and more southern spreading drug type plants, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all the stands into India, Thailand, and then obviously spreading into Africa and America and everywhere, Hawaii, all over the world from there. There's an interesting thing to note about these flavor profiles, because I've grown a lot of old seed from all over the world, a lot of bunk Mexican seeds, trust me, in my day. I've worked with plants from India, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, brought here by people that actually traveled there. So not just a seed company. A lot of people think that seed companies are totally full of shit. And you know something, folks, the better established seed companies are mostly not full of shit. And when they tell you that they've gathered something from the Hindu Kush Valley, from lowland Afghanistan, from Morocco, from Africa, most of the time they've gone and done the work, because there's a lot riding on their name. And there's a lot of people that are from those regions that will speak up if the plant that you're selling has nothing to do with what's coming from the region. And conversely, a lot of pride comes from seeing a plant that comes from your region in the market being sold in the Netherlands by seed companies or by our seed companies in California. So like, I know quite a bit about Mexican plants, and I know quite a bit about North American plants, West Coast. That's really my range of specialty. I also know a bit about Morocco. I've been to Morocco. I've studied a lot of Moroccan plants, a lot of Moroccan hash. I was part of the group that distributed the imported Moroccan and Afghanistani hash back in the day. The fact that I got the opportunity to sell all of this illicit product for so long really allowed me to become highly educated in regards to how the different plants from different regions appear. Because again and again, different shipments, different seed company, and then all of these things match up in the end. It can't just be a coincidence. So over time, I have realized something that I've checked in books and also verified with other colleagues that also have popped a lot more seeds than me. You know, I found that, like, no matter where you go in the world, most of the semi-wild and wild plants, they have a really dirt profile. They've got this like almost hashy, but mostly dirt. It's a kind of a dirty hay aroma, hay, dry grass, and dull aroma. The common landrace profile, I want to make that clear as a starting point, that like myrcene dominance, beta-caryophyllene dominance is the most prolific in pretty much all the plants that I've seen from all over the world that are landrace. Remember, a lot of people are like, oh man, I want that landrace, it's so fire. Which landrace have you ever grown that's fire? Because like all of the land races I've ever grown, seen in the wild, seen in field, they're nice. Some of them that have been semi-refined, semi-wild plants that are tended to by local people, where the local people will take the seed from the most prolific female and ensure that that female is giving the most, is passing on the genetics to most of the subsequent generations. It produces some nice plants. And usually local people will select some outliers that exist within their landrace population, and they'll tend to foment that outlying aroma by, again, selecting the seeds from that female specifically, replanting those seeds and avoiding the replanting of other plants that have less desirable profiles, less desirable bud size, less desirable adaptability to the region. So not as resilient. So all of these factors play into selection, whether it's a very organized program of breeding, or, breeding that's done with less consciousness, just based on, appreciation of the plant. And maybe not all the seed from one female is going to get planted, because not that much organization in a huge area. How do you control all these plants? So there's going to be all kinds of members of the population in a land race. And the majority of those members are not going to be the delicious outliers. The majority of those landrace individuals will have a very dirty, very myrcene dominant beta-caryophyllene, not a lot of other stuff occurring in high contents, not an enormous amount of terpene. THC does not tend to be amazingly high, although, yes, there are some semi-wild plants that can hit close to 20%, and that's pretty impressive for, a cultivated plant that, still has a lot of pollen from neighboring regions that might come and hit it once in a while. But by staying on top of those delicious plants and ensuring that the delicious plants provide more genetic inheritance to subsequent generations, again, by selecting the seed of that plant, we do refine land races, and there are some land races that have more genetic pools, or let's call it outliers within them, that are a bit more delicious, a little bit more desirable than those found in other land races, maybe where local people haven't been paying that close attention to the plants, maybe not selecting as much, right? So land races are found all over the world. There are some semi-wild populations in like Malawi and Colombia and Mexico that can achieve pretty high THC, Hindu Kush valleys, that also achieve some fairly desirable profiles, some highly differentiated profiles. You don't find the pineapples and the citruses that you find in Africa and in India, mangoes. You don't tend to find those high up in the Hindu Kush Valley. Hindu Kush Valley most definitely leans a little bit more towards those acrid, more, earth is also in there, just the same as the low elevation haze, but it's got more than earth. It's got some pine, and it's got some skunk, and maybe it's got some gas, maybe some tar. There's very common, these pine tar type aromas in the Pakistanis, more so the high elevation ones. So you do have all these little pockets all over the world where you do have some desirable outliers within the general landrace pool that, again, is going to be mostly just myrcene, beta-caryophyllene, very dirty, not so desirable nose, okay? And obviously not desirable in terms of bud production as either. You have to work on things like that to get them to tick the way you want them to. But, when it comes to names, when I say Malawi, when I say Congolese, when I'm talking about land races, first of all, there's not one Congo, there's not one Malawi, there's not one Pakistani, there's not one Nepalese. These are massive gene pools with tons of different types of aromatic outliers within that myrcene, beta-caryophyllene, dirty thing that's going on with most of them. So when I say the Malawi gold or the killer Malawi, I'm talking about a specific type of Malawi that the local people find desirable and that they try to maintain. Remember that if local people do not maintain these outdoor crops by trying to keep undesirable pollen away and choosing the seed from that female that did really well that season and replanting that specific seed, if we don't do that, genetic drift will take our flavor profiles and they turn right back into that dirt, myrcene, beta-caryophyllene, not too much going on there, right? These symbols, Malawi gold, killer Malawi, that means something to me. I know that it's got a range of phenotypes, even within that specific grouping of the more potent, more aromatically desirable Malawis. There's the purple Malawi, the killer Malawi, this and that. They have different terminologies that they utilize for the different phenotypes within that group that have slightly different aroma profiles, slightly different appearances. But each of those terms, they mean something to me. To me, the grower, to me, the dude that's been around these plants for a while, like The Malana is a type of Indian. The Hindu Kush sold by Sensi Seeds, which was probably the first one brought into market, Sensi Seeds and greenhouse seeds, has a very particular characteristic to it. The Hindu Kush that's been popularized, the one that was used by so many other people to make so many other type of plants. So again, these words, they mean something. People that say that names are meaningless don't come from our culture. And I respect that academics don't come from our culture. I respect that a lot of consumers are never going to get exposure to it. But the culture exists and the people exist. And these people are at the heart of the entire movement. I shouldn't say they have created this. And to deny that their knowledge, their expertise, their passion is real, exists, that their culture exists, is a big part of what's going wrong with our industry right now. That's why so many people's weeds suck. That's why so many people's in-house crosses are so uninspired, so boring. So like, again, traditional names as given by breeders or by the place of ancestry, it doesn't just mean a morphology, a look, a flavor profile, a biochemistry, a place of provenance, or an individual who is the creator, or a group who are the creators. It's everything. That name encapsulates everything. It's like a hieroglyphic that only an Egyptologist can read. And so people look at this thing and they say, oh, those are stupid little pictures, but they encrypt knowledge. They encrypt knowledge and they tell me this is the cut from that person. This is a seed from this region. It should have, generally speaking, these characteristics. And of course, knowing the science of the fact that, most gene pools are highly unstable, that very few breeders are taking this time to stabilize their traits by creating subsequent generations in which they inbreed for the traits that they're looking for. Like, we know that these are rarities. And so just because this plant is so unpredictable in regards to the offspring that it can produce in most cases, it doesn't mean that having a name for that cut is not useful. And, we're going to discuss a lot of folks that are proposing alternate systems that basically want to eliminate names. The debate for names as opposed to indica and sativa are two different subject matter. People need to remember that. Indica and sativa mythology needs to be discarded. It's not useful. It does not lead us towards serving our customers better. It does not lead us towards breeding better. It doesn't give a shit. Indica and sativa, when used by farmers to describe morphology and maturation period, that's going to be useful. And the Rastafarians, they're not going to stop anytime soon. The narco, they're not going to stop anytime soon. Most traditional farmers are going to keep using these words to describe maturation period and how she grows. And we should respect traditional farmers that don't come from academia to do that. When we use indica and sativa as marketing terms, we're doing ourselves and the general public an enormous disservice because we're creating two subcategories that are not really real. And we learn a lot about that during level 1 and level 2. Okay. You learn a lot about that in Gangier. You learn a lot about that in pretty much all schools that are out there teaching this kind of information. What is important to remember is not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Indica and sativa is different than traditional name. Okay, never forget that. That Sensi, okay, skunk number 1, the Sensi skunk line, the so many different skunks that have different terminologies, tie them into different breeding groups, tie them into different ancestors. And when scientists like to say that we're all a bunch of jokers, none of us are real about the ancestor lines that we used, I'm going to explain to a lot of you today why it always behooved us to be real about what we were using when we're rolling out a new name into the street, because it makes money. Money. It's all about money at the end of the day. Subsistence farmers, they got to pay for food to put on the table. Okay, big dealers on the street that are moving a lot of money back in the day, maybe some of them still today, they also need to pay their employees, pay for the rent, pay for the power. What makes money is what's created our culture as it is, where the people that are like, yeah, I use blueberry and OG, I didn't really use those, and I just use random plants and it's all garbage. Well, your subsequent offspring is also going to be garbage, sir or ma'am, and it won't make money for you. If it doesn't smell like the gas coming from the OG line and the blueberry coming from the blueberry line, and you didn't create real blueberry yum yum, which brings you both of these accentuated profiles, highly differentiated from both mother lines, and both are still present. And it brings you something more. It combines the blueberry line and the OG line to bring you something different that needs to exist, that has its own rights to exist, that brings the consumer something that they didn't get before, they couldn't get before in such a delightful manner. That's why blueberry yum yum sells, because it took proof of concept, and delivered something by combining these two pieces of IP that predictively was going to have an offspring that would also be badass, because you took two market champions, you produced another market champion. If you take two garbo genetics, sorry, these are street terms, two genetics that are not really worth a lot of money and that are not going to pump money at market level. Remember, market is what tells us what is a good genetic and what is not a good genetic. Good genetic defined by, do buyers want it or not? Does it make money or not? Are all my buddies asking me for the cut because they want to make money too or not? That's what defines it. So when people say traditional names are worthless, they are not something we should be paying attention to. Scientists forget how it is that breeders like Ryan Lee knows where to go to get terpenoline dominance, that he knows where to go to get limonene dominance, so that he can breed the plants that people like Ethan Russo runs his models on. So if traditional names meant nothing to Ryan Lee, Ethan Russo could not have published his most impactful paper in the past 3 years. Okay, so I hope that puts the matter to rest. And today, Ethan Russo is playing a little bit of a different tune. Instead of saying traditional names need to be discarded and replaced just by terpene classes, he's saying something a little bit different. Now he's saying, oh no, traditional names, they actually have something to do with specific terpene classes, which means that traditional names always did have something to give us. And that's how I learned. I learned flavor profiles based on traditional names. And that's how I built my school. I built my school around the understanding of specific street cultivars and of translating street culture over to scientific terminologies and biochemical profiles. And that's what I want to talk about in this section, because Afghan, to me, it means something really special. It means something really specific. Afghan does not mean Kush, okay? In the world of breeders and growers, if I say I've got an Afghan, I'm talking more about an Afghan #1 type plant. A plant that's got like earth and mulching leaves and some fungal aromas. Yeah, but not too much of the berries and milk products that I would see in subsequent generations, although you could still find some cheesiness and berries in a lot of low-lying Afghans. I call Afghans typically Morocco Afghanis because in my travels, I've noticed that like a bulk of the plants that are in Morocco and Afghanistan, from Afghanistan to Morocco, have a lot of similarities to them. You like I told you, this very dirty profile, any area that is difficult for you to stop pollen, this very dirty profile tends to take root in the majority of your population. That's why most Mexicans are like that. That's why most Afghans are like that. That's why like any traditional region you travel to, you're going to be like, oh, mostly just dirt. Okay. Then you find some queens in those populations. But like Afghan means something. When I say the term Afghan amongst breeders and growers that are experienced growing a multitude of plants, like it means something to our community. Okay. To plant experts, this means something. So when people are like, oh, Afghan doesn't mean shit, man, everything is so hybridized, those terms have nothing to do with today's plants. I disagree. I think understanding the genetic basis of where we came from is what gives you respect for the people and the plants that created today. And it also gives you an understanding of where complex aroma profiles originate from, how they are put together, how they were constructed, so that then you can really understand flavor, man. So again, Afghans means a lot of things. It doesn't just mean flavor profile. It's a particular growth pattern, how long she's going to take to mature, the biochemical content that I can expect. A lot of people don't realize that like a common Afghan population all the way to Morocco, they're very commonly, especially if like I said, it's an area where there's not a lot of blockage for pollen and seeds are moving everywhere. you're going to get a lot of this similar flavor going on. And you're also going to get a lot of this similar biochemical profiling where you don't just have THC dominance. There's so much pollen and so many semi-wild plants around that the plants are kind of not just selected for THC dominance. They still have naturally occurring CBD in them, which is something you'll find a lot less in areas that are more constricted in terms of pollen movement, like high in the Hindu Kush valleys and certain valleys where local people are able to keep that pollen out. And unwittingly, they are selecting for THC dominance because they are selecting for the stoniest hash. And they're selecting the mothers that have the stoniest hash because the stoniest hash is making them more money. And so that, again, it's money is and economy and culture are intermingled with how these genetics are selected for and subsequently how they evolve. So again, Afghan means something really specific to me. Kush means something specific to me. Like it's higher elevation. It's not just a low elevation Afghan. It's trapped within these Hindu Kush valleys that allow for less movement of seed, less exchange of seed, because these regions are really difficult to get to. And frankly, they're disputed regions, which are also militarily oftentimes unstable. So like it's difficult to get a bunch of trade, and there's not as much trade. And the pollen from down there, where the valley systems are not, where it's 100 meters elevation, it's not the same situation as up there at 3,000 meter, as much as 4,000 meter, right? That's really high. Those valley systems are very well protected. So those plants have an opportunity to differentiate themselves in terms of aroma profile, appearance. We learn a lot about this in level one. I know that if I have a lot of level one people here watching this, I know that you know this, but be aware that these terms, again, haze means something to us. And I don't want to go through all of the details for each family grouping that we study in class. I'm making a point here that, like the CannaReps perspective, look, are there only narrow leaf plants in areas that are occupied primarily by haze-like plants, like in South India and Thailand, Mexico, Colombia? No, there's also broadleaf plants there and everything in between. But haze-like plants have more of a predominance in those type of areas. In warmer tropical areas, we call them equatorials. There's also narrow leaf plants that are high elevation plants that produce different flavor profiles than the ones that are lower elevation. They also produce the same flavor profile. Himalayans have a really, really vast range of flavor profiles that are covered by them. And if you're level one, you don't even know about Himalayans because we don't bring those into class until level two. They're very uncommon in today's market. The flavor profiles you find in Himalayans, super special. Afghans, as I described, more mulching leaves. Kush is more pine skunk gas. But up there in the mountain, you're going to find a predominance of that dirt aroma, just the same as the Afghan. Just the genetic outliers tend to be a little bit more accurate. Okay, so oops, okay, had my haze slide in the wrong place. So again, here's where I'm moving towards. This is the type of stuff that we teach at CannaReps. We're very cultivar specific. We focus on specific groupings of cultivars that are genetically related to each other, and that also have some degree of aromatic correlation. So here we go. Afghan number one, which is a plant that was used, these types of plants, very unintrusive in their aroma, very dirt, flat. It's not very loud in terms of its aroma. Afghan number one is not like so acrid. Oh my God, it's so loud. No, it's just like dirt, hay, mulch really is what a lot of people call it. It's a pretty flat flavor profile. Linalool does not occur in extreme dominance here. Linalool is usually in a secondary or tertiary role. Myrcene and beta-caryophyllene, again, making that dirty profile very pronounced. Hindu Kush, here we've got something to start mentioning, that these terpenes don't really create the aroma of gas or skunk at all that Kush is so known for. We need to bring more into the conversation in order to really delineate what makes Kush aromatically speaking. You cannot create skunk with terpenes alone. That aroma does not come from terpenes. The same way that some hazes that have mango or pineapple mixed in with a citrus or with other tropical flavors, they are not just going to be composed out of the terpenes that you observe here. Beta-caryophyllene dominance being very common. limonene, sometimes terpenoline dominance. It really depends what you're looking at. Original haze tends to be more limonene dominance. This is one of the problems that I'm going to mention later in the presentation with the proposed system put forth by Northern Californians, where they want to categorize haze as beta-caryophyllene and terpenoline, which also happens, but not always. And so creating these flavor profiles that are more disbanded from actual genetic groups oftentimes like leaves out a lot of color. It leaves out a lot of detail. And so in our school, we really like to focus a lot on specific cultivars, looking at the COAs associated with this cultivars, and then looking at other cultivars that have similar genetic lineages as claimed, or as well as similar biochemistries, placing them alongside each other and learning to differentiate between them based on their subtleties. Original haze is a really important plant. I've grown a lot of it, a lot of the descendants from original haze. People ask me if original haze is really that different from a lot of its offspring. Hell yes, it is. Morphologically, especially morphologically, everything after original haze is not as wispy. Original haze is mega wispy. It doesn't produce a lot of weight. It wasn't really as industrially viable as a lot of the plants nowadays. Original haze, like 14 weeks, 16 weeks, and she's done. But that's way, way longer than most of the subsequent crosses that came off of that line. So when people are like, man, does anybody really know if they used original haze to breed what they have today? I'm like, you know what, man, it does rub me the wrong way. Because if you think that it's easy to find a queen that does what original haze did, and if you think that like Sam the skunk man, the Hayes brothers, all the people that helped select those plants, brought them to the foreground. If you think that none of those people were real, none of the shit they did was real, nothing that they tell us was real, then, you know, we're just going to have to part ways there. I'm sorry. Like Sam the skunk man is somebody that when he talks, I listen. I shut the fuck up and I listen. When DJ Short talks, I shut up and I listen. When Ryan Lee talks, I shut up, I listen. Because these people, if they tell you I'm using this is where I find this flavor profile, this is where I find that flavor profile, they got no reason to lie, and they've been making money their whole lives based on the fact that what they say pans out to be real when you open that jar. Shit, man, that really does smell like the original haze that was sold for so long by the Dutch companies. Man, and this subsequent cross really does remind me of that mother lineage. It's just got something else. It's got something different. And so when you have that kind of connection with, you don't only know the children, you know the parent lines and the grandparent lines. When people tell you, oh, there's no real genetic relationship, it's not even worth knowing names, I get pissed off, man. I get pissed off because that's my culture. Those are my idols. That's the thing that I'm trying to protect and represent. That's what I've been living from. That shit's been feeding me since I was 19 years old, man. I paid my way through university by knowing that culture, being connected to those people, carrying the right cut, and having everyone on campus want to buy from me. That's how I ruled UBC with an iron fist. That's how I did it. That's what's crazy to me, that people are like, man, no, this isn't going to make you any money. It's all empty marketing. And I'm like, okay, well then, if it was all empty marketing, how is it that I win out in every single market that I participate in? Why is it that the people I work with and that I breed with, that I grow with, these are the people that are killing it? Why? Every time. Why? So we're beating our neighbors for no reason? No, man. No, man. My blueberry's fucking blueberry. That's why. Because when you open the jar and I say, this is DJ Short blueberry, it's going to reek of blueberries beyond reason. You can't even understand how it condensed so much blueberry flavor. It smells more like blueberries than blueberries, I like to tell people. It's so intense. It's such amazing work that Mr. Short did. And for people to be like, yeah, man, that plant never even existed and nobody knows if they have that plant. Yo, TJ Short's alive, bro. He's got a kid that's like still running his seeds. These are real people and this is a real culture. And I don't give a damn what anybody says, because yes, there are tons of imitators and posers that are going to make you think it's all bullshit. People that think they're going to make more money by calling a plant something it's not. None of those people end up winning out in the end. It doesn't happen. Queens are made by people who know how to hunt for queens, how to create queens, have the passion for it since they were youngins, right? Or not, or maybe you just got the passion, but you have a passion for it. And you know that gold doesn't come out of nowhere. It has to be refined. It has to be found. It has to be, the diamond has to be dug out of the rough, man. It's being done. It's being done all the time. You know, this Himalayan blackberry is not a very common profile. Recently put into the market by Soulfire Genetics, working out of like Oregon and Washington, I believe. I had a really good fortune of being connected to somebody that was selling it into a group here in Canada, and I managed to get my hands on it for class. I brought it into level 2. Those of you who have experienced it at level 2, you know what I'm talking about. The Himalayan blackberry is a big fucking deal. It's a flavor profile that does not exist in today's market. It combines berry, cheese, pine, gas, everything together, balanced in a beautiful package. And that beta-caryophyllene dominance that you're observing there, again, you know, a lot of these narrow leaf plants, these plants that have this morphology, people tend to say, well, there's no intersection between biochemistry and morphology and traditional regions. And there are absolutely traditional regions that have particular morphologies that, you know, there's varying morphologies in the region, but like absolutely, it's true. Biochemistry is not dependent on morphology. That's absolutely true. To say that like there aren't patterns in particular regions for specific type of aromatic outliers, to say that up in the Himalayas, there isn't a lot of like cheese, man. There is cheese. A lot of there's a lot of Himalayan cheese cultivars from different groups. There's a lot of stuff that has incense, sweet gas, earth, even citrus from lower elevations, the more equatorial plants. Yeah, it gets mixed in there, but to find mostly citrus dominant genetic outliers at 2,000 meters elevation in Nepal happens a lot less. In Mexico, we do have some highland hazes, and the highland hazes, they obtain different qualities than more low-lying hazes in Mexico. So, you know, altitude does have something to do with flavor profile, and it does affect it. It doesn't produce predictable results. You don't say, oh, I go high and I'm going to find gas every time. No, that's not the case. But definitely there's some type, we don't understand it yet. We don't understand the science of it. To say that there's no correlation between the type of environment that you work in and the biochemicals you produce is a lie. Terpenes are the biochemical language that's established between a plant and its environment. And we don't really understand how yet, but some cannabinoids might play into this type of pattern as well. Maybe the reason why we see more THCV occurring in more tropical cultivars, narrow leaf cultivars. Yes, that's one example that I can give you of a trend that I've observed, that I've discussed with colleagues, and we all kind of see it. Like THCV tends to spike more in specific type of ancestor lines, and lo and behold, they do tend to be more so equatorials. That's not a rule that applies unanimously, but I'm letting you know that biochemical content there is a ness sometimes to a region, and it does happen. And so here is a slide that illustrates to you how these ancestor lines were, these type of ancestor lines were combined to create new ancestor lines that now have differentiated aroma profiles from the ancestors that came before them, okay? And they also have, of course, predictably, some biochemical content that also changed in order to produce those differentiated aromas. So funny to me when I talk to a PhD and they're like, Adolfo, I don't really think that there's such a thing as a biochemical fingerprint for cookies. And I say, well, then you must not think that anything tastes like Girl Scout cookies. And then obviously you have not tasted Berner's Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie cut, because anybody that's tasted that cut cannot tell me that that plant does not taste like what the name implies. In the same way that anyone who's had a plant that's been well selected from a DJ Short seed line for blueberry, like if they tell me, oh, there's no blueberry in there, I'm like, well, then you just did not have a plant that this man created, because that's the way it reeks of blueberries. It's not a little bit. It's the same thing with the Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies coming from Berner and Jigga. It's not like a little minty with a little pastries. No, dude, it's like loud mint, loud pastry, vanilla, chocolate, in your face. You know what I'm saying? Like, this stuff is real, people. And we don't need to rewrite, in my mind, we don't need to rewrite the book. This thing that they're doing in Cali that we're about to talk about, I respect it. I love it. I think it's highly educational. It's an amazing training tool for people that want to get to that next level of understanding of what cultivars are, how complex aromas are constituted out of base biochemicals. I think it's great stuff. I dislike the fact that a lot of Ethan Russo's verbatim to this day implies that traditional cultivar names are useless. Basically saying that we can disband the name of the person that created this thing from the thing. So we don't need to know it's made by DJ Short. We don't need to know that that cut specifically came from the DJ Short seed line. We don't need to know that that's the Girl Scout cookies coming specifically from the from the cookies family. We don't need to know that shit. Well, I disagree. I disagree, and I'm never going to stop disagreeing. I would love to see the approach, the phytofacts approach, intermingled with traditional cultivar nomenclature, and to actually get really anal about knowing truly which cut we have through genotyping, and to really focus on giving breeders their due instead of trying to take away credit from our culture, from the hard work and the risk that we have taken in order to get to where we are. Very simple for an academic to say, oh, discard all of that. Provenance matters when you risk your fucking ass to get here. Okay? Provenance matters. Should matter to all of us. We should have more respect than that. We should not tell breeders that they're doing us a disservice by providing a name to their creation. It's an art piece. I'm calling my art piece something. It's a symbol. It tells you my art piece has purple leaves. It's tall. It tastes like grapes. Okay? This is real. To me, this is like really important stuff, because scientists have a long history of trying to stamp out traditional cultures, racism, exclusionism, denial of where they got a lot of the fundamental understandings that they currently work with. The initial publications from Ethan Russo, I wasn't too stoked on that dimension of it, as much as he inspired me with the fundamental building blocks of knowledge he was providing and proposing. The system that's being proposed that we're about to discuss in a moment in Northern California is a proposal. What I'm teaching to you right now, this is established cannabis culture. This is where we come from. Okay, so I know both what Exodus cheese smells like, and I know what biochemical constituents I can find at laboratory level that define Exodus cheese. Not above 20% THC. Typically beta-caryophyllene dominant, followed by limonene. Loud cheese, not like dull cheese, not kind of cheesy, very sharp, loud cheese. That's the Exodus cheese line. It's a cut-only line from the Exodus group in UK, a hugely influential DIY group that threw some of the biggest DIY parties all through the 90s. Part of the group that was involved in bringing forth musical genres like jungle, like acid house. These were hugely influential culture makers that are to this day unrecognized. Nobody knows who the Exodus group is. Nobody knows the work that they did. Nobody knows that they revolutionized the UK scene. Nobody knows that, again, the people that sold Exodus cheese were making a boatload of money in the UK. So that cut started going everywhere. And that's why cheese is king in the UK probably to this day. I don't know, frankly, because I haven't been buying there since 2012. I lived there 2010. I went back 2012. Back then, cheese was still king. From the mid-90s up to that point, cheese was ruling. And again, people are like, well, how does anybody know they really got cheese? Yo, if your cut reeks of sharp cheese, trust me, that flavor doesn't come from anywhere. People that are like, oh, it must be so easy to find a plant that smells cheesy like that. It wasn't. It took generations of work to get there, people. So the cut that reeks like cheese that's killing it in the UK market, not UK cheese, Exodus cheese, the slightly more elongated, a bit more citrus on the nose, sweeter, louder cheese. UK cheese is boring to me. Bulbous, yeah. Produces more weight, yeah. Finishes quicker, yeah. But so boring in aroma profile. You see, for me, knowing the difference between Exodus cheese and UK cheese is a big deal. When people tell me, well, dude, you shouldn't care about these names because they don't mean anything. I'm like, okay, So there's not like a predictable morphology and aroma profile coming from those UK cheese seed lines being sold by these Dutch companies. Okay, shows how much of that seed you've grown. Because I've grown it. And I've also grown Exodus cheese from cut form, and I know the difference. These are like old friends to me. People are like, Adolfo, why should I listen to you? You don't publish books. You're not writing academic publications. If you're not published, why should I listen to you? I have published. I just haven't published on flavor profiles, and it shouldn't matter whether or not I published. It should matter whether or not I have grown plants that have killed it on the street, and I understand how money moves on the street. I'm telling you, this is the system that has regulated who's got what. Are you making money off of it or not? Are people like jumping over their local dealer to get to you because you've got the fire or not? Right? I know people are like, well, Adolfo, that's not a very scientific measure. I'm not telling you it's scientific. I'm not telling you it's perfect. I'm telling you this is the intersection between science and culture. And there's those of us that inhabit this region, and we're very few. And if you want to tell us that nobody inhabits that area, that no breeders have been testing for the contents of their plants, and that no breeders have been actually working with other breeders that have been working with other breeders before them that gave them plants that could do certain things aromatically. It's just not, it doesn't look it. At the end of the day, the people that built this culture are some of the also more financially successful individuals. Not all of them. You're going to find a lot of broke ass, really badass breeders out there. But like, if you got hooked up at the street and you were pumping out kilos and kilos out into the street, you made your money, you know how money moves, and you know that being a bullshitter doesn't pay. You know that, oh, I've got purple kush, and then you've got this dull, flavorless, like everybody that couldn't get that purple kush cut, right? And then they just pumped out whatever kush they could get. They're like, oh, I got the purple kush. Well, that's why purple kush lost its shine. That's why people stopped asking for it. So many imitators started pumping out this garbage purple kush, that purple kush stopped being popular. And to this day, purple kush has lost its shine. Meanwhile, people like me that know that a real original purple kush cut exists, and we know that that cut is still delicious, we know that that plant would still kill in today's market. If we brought it to today's market, because it's got proof of concept, it already did it one time. Same thing with DJ Short Blueberry. It already killed in 1978. It already killed in the 80s. It already killed in the 90s. OG Kush, Triangle OG, killed in the 90s, killed in the early 2000s, will still kill today. But you gotta have a good selection of Triangle Kush coming from Humboldt Seed Organization, probably. Get what I'm saying? So anyways, I know a lot of you out there are probably, look, if you might be giggling to yourself, you might be saying, man, Adolfo is such a, he's such a preacher for this thing that other people say is bullshit. Yeah, I know there's some issues with everything I've just said. I know that I'm not pitching something that's easy to access, something that's easy to understand, something that's easy to follow. Like, I know that there's not an official system of verification for all the ancestry that I claim to know that's in my plants. I know that. I know that I might get some surprises when I do genotyping and correlational genome mapping. I know I'm probably going to get some surprises. You don't tend to get as many as you think you're going to get when you actually do that work. You end up finding out that a lot of the plants that are claimed to have genetic association actually do, but there's always some surprises. That's okay. Breeders also, they just keep breeding and we make more names and then we leave it. Like, if you're not in my little bubble, you don't know, up here in the Kootenays, we've got in-house genetics. They rolled out pancakes a while ago. Still barely anybody knows about pancakes. Blows my mind. Such a beautiful, delicious, hardy cultivar, both for indoor and outdoor growing. But yeah, if you're not following that Kootenay scene and you're not like in it to win it, like, you don't know what's up. I get it. You got to become a specialist. You have to be regionally specific. You got to be hooked up to the right cultural pools, as in the right breeder bubble. It's a lot of ifs, right? And I get it. It's not accessible to the general public. This is a big problem. This is why the proposals down south coming from the people in California really do have something for us right now and in the future. It is inspiring. It is opening up a conversation that needs to be had, because we need to create more accessible systems. These symbols for names are a problem, but to say that they're useless and that nobody should create them anymore and that we need to disband from traditional breeding, I think that that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. We need to understand that like the market has been regulating, again, money has been a regulation effect on bullshit. If you have fire and consumers are ranting and raving about your cut and you gave your cut a name, you're not doing a disservice. You're just saying, dude, this is the cut that kills and I'm the person that brought it forth, and this is this, and I lay claim to this. And there's no creator of novel IP that's not going to do that. There's no breeder that's going to finish their project and go, this is X15 limonene. I just don't like, even when you do that, the person that actually brings it to market will rename it, because you got to give it something more snazzy and that speaks to the unique character of that cut, not just generally speaking, it's got limonene profile. Well, what else? Does limonene dominance mean that it always smells the same thing, that it affects everyone the same way? You know, we need more science there to answer that question. And definitely I can tell you that limonene dominance, for somebody that's tested a lot of plants, doesn't always mean that the complex profile it's one way. There's slightly different versions, slightly different takes on the profile and other biochemical constituents that happen alongside it. So yeah, there's a problem with our system. I'm not a person that says, oh, the names are perfect, names are where we need to stay, names are it, man. That's not what I'm saying either. I'm saying names have a value to those of us who come from those regions, from those cultures, from those groups. You cannot take that provenance from us. You cannot disband our work from the terminologies that come from our regions that we have given them. That's my point. We're doing ourselves a disservice when we do that. Now, if we don't create other ways of looking at the plant, flavor profiles is what's going on today. Flavor profiles and terpene classes. So Ethan Russo is the original proponent of this method. I've felt rather strongly that Ethan Russo was actually drawing from a lot of ideas that already existed in our community. And he kind of stamped his name all over it. And it's always made me feel a little uncomfortable, to be honest. I've always felt that it's funny because I got some information recently that kind of confirmed a lot of my suspicions that I had over the years. But yeah, Ethan Russo is not really the voice, in my mind, that should be speaking to this alone, and he's not anymore. He's joined a big group of researchers, mostly from Northern California, breeders, growers, that I think are going to turn the discussion in a much healthier direction, where it's not about one person and not about one person's ideas, and it's not about one system either. I find Phytofacts has several shortcomings in the description of aroma, the pigeonholing into specific type of effects that might have been collected at the study level via methods that I want to see larger population sizes. I want to see a broader range of potential effects being considered. I want to see replication of the study's findings in slightly altered research models. I want to see more research. I don't think that patenting this, and patenting is knowledge, academic knowledge that should be broadly available to everyone, makes me feel yucky, which Ethan Russo has done. It also makes me feel yucky to know that we don't have enough data, double-blind clinical model trials, bigger populations, replication of the data, to really be able to tell people that this terpene profile from this cultivar does this for a large population group. I don't think, look, I'm not saying that, for example, this slide that's on here, that an extreme limonene dominance won't provide a lot of sort of like inspiration. Again, a term that leaves a lot of room for interpretation to me. I'm not saying that limonene does not make you very mentally active. That's not what I'm saying, okay? I'm not saying that a lot of the basic proposals that are found in Ethan Russo's publications may not pan out to be mostly true. Intense limonene dominance may very well do this for the majority of the population. Does intense limonene dominance with thiols, with specific type of thiols, do the same thing for everyone? What happens when, for example, maybe linalool in this chart takes a little bit more of a co-dominant position? Does limonene still do exactly the same thing? The context of terpene dominance, I think, is very important to look at, like what other terpenes are occurring alongside of them. And are our data sets thorough enough that we could patent this and sell it as the word of God, as like we know this does this, that does that. So I should be formulating products that tell you this is going to give you energy, because I know that this terpene profile provides energy for the majority of people. He's done that with True Terpene, and he's been doing that with several people and making money from it. And I think it's incomplete science, and I also don't think it's entirely just his science. And I don't think that having a proposed system of flavor category and then going the way that he's gone about it economically, politically, socially is actually the best example, personally. Not saying that like I hate Ethan Russo, I don't. I actually look up to the man pretty intensely. He's like, without his publications, my school and me personally, I would not be where I am. I'm just saying that we have to be critical and we have to question things, and we can't just take things as a given because we're seeing it presented so neatly and in a scientific format. We need to think a little bit beyond that. And at level 2, we break down a lot of these criticisms with a lot more detail. Today, I just want to make it clear that, like, you know, we have entered the age of the terpene class, whether or not we like it. A lot of us are very, no, we don't want to go. We're kicking and screaming, but we got to do it. We got to do it because it's useful to think in this way. But I do put a question mark at it, because the thing that, you know, NAPRO and SC Labs together with the Emerald Cup has been pitching, I love it. I love it. But there's a big chunk missing. And I don't think that we should be telling people, oh, all of this class of flavor provides this effect. I think that's a mistake personally, because there's too much variability of other compounds that occur alongside the primary terpenes and secondary terpenes, tertiary terpenes that they are considering. And not looking at the thiol content, not looking at the ester content. Now, I know that this is where science will go. And I know that the system that's being proposed is just the first step in going to where we need to go. Okay? But like, this is the biggest shortcoming right now, in my opinion, that we're pitching all flavor profiles that contain these primary terpenes kind of taste and smell the same, and they kind of make you feel the same. I don't necessarily agree when you look at a broad range of cultivars. I think that like there's got to be a lot more categories, a lot more subdivisions. And I know that like in a lot of the content they've put out, they've acknowledged everything that I'm saying. But like cheese, beta-caryophyllene, limonene dominant, okay? Haze, original haze, beta-caryophyllene, limonene dominant also. Two very different plants, very, very different complex aroma profiles. And in the current proposed system, hazes are pitched as mostly terpenoline dominant, not limonene. Dominance doesn't come into the picture in accordance with the cards that they're showing. Original haze is mostly limonene dominant, not terpenoline dominant, according to the analyses that I've been looking at for a long, long time, as well as some of the publications done by people down south. Cannabis Pharmacy, written by, I remember in a second, stipulates the same thing. My finding is the same as their finding. So again, I believe that the current system being proposed down south does leave a little bit to be desired. I want to open up the Emerald Cup page, because as much as it leaves something to be desired, I look up so much to the efforts being conducted down there. I mean, it is ground zero for cannabis education, knowledge, breeding, everything. The Emerald Triangle, right? That area right around Mendocino and Humboldt County, right? It's a really, 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 really special place in the world. And the people that work there, the people that are the OGs that are from there, are kind of like the global OGs, aside from some of the Dutch people. And like, honestly, I really look up to them, man. And I just think that everything that they're doing is so awesome. I want to pop up their page and I want to give them some love real quick. I'm also going to stop sharing. And no, I'm not going to stop sharing just yet. I'm going to pop up the Emerald Triangle, sorry, the Emerald Cup page. Okay, everyone. This is not CannaReps material. I'm actually showing you the Emerald Cup page right now. This is what they are proposing as their system of classification for different flavor profiles within their market. And we are going to go a little bit over the hour today, but please hang with me. I promise you there's some juicy stuff at the last section. The Emerald Cup is proposing that Jacks and hazes get thrown into one category, claiming that it's mostly terpenoline, myrcene, and ocimene dominant. Again, not all hazes are terpenoline dominant. Very important that we remember that. And I think that that's something that's been like overlooked in the system right away. Again, does cheese count as an exotic? Does skunk count as an exotic? I have a lot of questions that I would like answered, because I definitely understand that this is something that's been created for that region. It's trying to encapsulate the popular flavors within the California market. I think they've done a great job of it. At the same time, like I said, there's some areas where I'm like, hey, maybe not entirely on point in all of the pieces of data being relegated to the public, but that's okay. They're doing a great attempt here, great first attempt, in my opinion. Jackson hazes, yeah, Durban poison, definitely terpenoline dominant. Jack Herer, usually terpenoline dominant. There are some phenotypes that are limonene dominant instead of being terpenoline dominant. Super lemon haze, not always terpenoline dominant, sometimes limonene dominant. So train wreck, on the other hand, just like Durban poison, yes, very commonly terpenoline dominant. So you can see how more like personal knowledge of each of these cultivar types and knowing them as different cultivar types rather than as an overall flavor category does bring more color. It brings more insight into those that study the complex aroma and biochemical profile of this genetic group and these subsequent offspring. So that's, again, that's kind of where we come from. And CannaReps has taken that traditional information and intermingled it with complex aroma profile knowledge, as well as terpene information. Here we see more of a flavor profile taking precedence over the subsequent crosses and generalized gene pools. And I think that's not a terrible mistake, because latent in this system is a much more approachable, much more understandable system for the general public. That's very important. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bridge the gap, eliminate indica and sativa, which CannaReps and pretty much every other cannabis education school has been working towards since day one, and saying, and let's put something in its place, something that is perhaps equally as easy to understand as indica and sativa. Unfortunately, I believe that the system they propose is actually not that much easier for the general public. The more I talk to people, the more that I've touched base with my students and with people here in Canada, this system that they're proposing actually can get way more complicated because you're opening up Pandora's box for subdivisions and regional differences. And that means that like it will be different for a lot of different regions on the world. Generalized aroma profiles that make sense within a specific bubble, geographic bubble or social bubble. And at the same time, the general public wants like simpler, not more complex. So if instead of using indica and sativa, we used sweet and fruity and acrid and gassy as a starting point, and then created subsequent divisions from there, we might be poking at something that might be a little bit more approachable still for the general public. So I love actually the fact that we're thinking in terms of flavor profiles now, though, and that we're pairing flavor profiles with specific biochemical mixtures that are generating those complex flavor profiles. But remember, the main shortcoming from the CannaReps perspective is that by leaving out the conversation of, and by not centering our conversation around, again, this information that we're seeing here, right? And what's nice about this effort, folks, is that they are combining it finally. There, Ethan Russo was like trying to leave this stuff behind initially, and now he's combining these traditional names with specific types of biochemistries, which provides with like an amazing opportunity for education for the general public and those that are geeky enough to want to know. Unfortunately, that is not the bulk of the market, folks. Not today, maybe in the future, maybe we can get there. But you know, people don't really buy wine this way. They don't really buy beer this way. They don't really buy coffee this way. So for me, like Arabica bean, as opposed to the Colombian as opposed to the Jamaican blue. Like those names are never gonna stop, in my opinion. And learning to provide very specific descriptions of each group, so that if you want to geek out on the Jamaican blue, you can do that. You want to geek out on Arabica, you can do that, but never disbanding this nomenclature Arabica from that very unique, complex coffee aroma. And I think that, like, I'll be frank with you, I really think that cannabis is going to end up being the same way, where indica and sativa hopefully will one day be discarded. But frankly, the chances of that happening, I still believe deeply, are low. And the reason for that being is because for most people, sativa already means sweet and fruity, and indica already means a little bit more acrid and gassy, pungent. Unfortunately, as those of us who are breeders and growers know, blueberry is short and bushy, and we call it an indica, but she's sweet and fruity. So she's going to confuse the fuck out of you, right? And she's low THC and like very approachable, high, very approachable flavor. Blueberry, putting it like, where would we put blueberry in these categories right now? Where would we just put blueberry? Blueberry, sweets and dreams, that's where we would probably place a blueberry. Sweets and dreams is very sweet. It's also got some dessert-like qualities though. That's another issue with this system, that OGs have sometimes some bit of citrus in there, not too much citrus, usually gas dominant, right? Some hazes, that they do mangoes, they do pineapples, they go exotic on us. There's a lot of intermingling over these categories when you're actually breaking them down into what specific genetics fit within each one. So it's not a perfect system. It's a great system to be training ourselves on how to think about how cultivars are sold, for example, because definitely, like, the more Jack Hayes tropical floral, it definitely appeals more to that kind of sector of the market, whereas the OG's gas sweet dreams, like all these cookies, all these gassy things, is like more of this other kind of consumer that really likes that gas, really likes that acrid, that strong putrid flavor that comes from those cushes, you know, like. And the dessert, sorry, the exotics, again, it's a very broad category. Basically throw anything in there. Would I have to throw cheese or skunk into exotic? Have we really come to the point where we call cheese an exotic, where cheese used to be so common for me and skunk used to be like so prolific in the 80s? Champagne, the plant that gave us Biker's hash plant, which was so prolific in the BC region from like 2001 to 2006. Is that an exotic now? Because, like, so again, the concept of what an exotic is will vary depending on what region you're in. It's very regional specific in my mind. And the flavor categories should also fluctuate depending on what region you're in. So I would be super interested in working with these folks to develop a regionally specific flavor categories that are more relevant to us here in BC specifically, as well as in Canada specifically. I would like to do one for Mexico, where we focus on our regional variants and all those cat pisses, all those citruses, all those things. That, where's cat piss going to go in here? Exotic, obviously, but in Mexico, cat piss is not as exotic. Cat piss is very common in La Lima Limon and La Oaxacan. It's all over the place, right? So again, as much as these systems have to teach us, they also have a door to open for what could be in the future, right? I implore all of you to go to this website and to really keep a close eye on Emerald Cup, everything being done by the crew that's up there. It's a collaboration between SE Labs, NAPRO Research, which is NAPRO is a research group that's like super badass. It's a who's who of like breeders, scientists. Ethan Russo is in there. All of the big breeders from Cali are in there. It's so cool, man. Again, I look up enormously to these groups. I think that they are not doing us a disservice at all. I think they are taking us in the right direction. This is the way we need to be thinking, but there's a problem with thinking that we're there, that this is it, that this is the final answer. Remember, you can't get gas from terpenes. Never forget that. You can't get skunk from terpenes. You can't get cheese from terpenes. Okay, those come from thiols. All right, here, I'm going to go back to my slideshow. Remember, those come from thiols. Esters, on the other hand, You can't produce berry flavor without esters. So blueberry wouldn't be blueberry just by having those terpenes. It's going to have some esters. Strawberry wouldn't have strawberry without esters. Pineapples wouldn't have pineapple without esters. So like presenting a flavor category purely based on terpenes, knowing that there's these other compounds that we're not considering that are so influential on complex aroma and potentially affect, it might be a big shortcoming for the system right now. We need to work with it, develop it, research it, get to where we need to go, right? Okay, and don't forget flavonoids, not really about flavor most of the time, mostly about coloration. They're pigments. Anthocyanins, really good example of that. All the purple, the red, those dark, almost black colorations, those are flavonoids, not contributing that much to flavor, okay? So where are we going? Let's tie this all up. So Adolfo's told you, this is what's happening. This is what's hot right now, right? Phytofacts, this concept that like I told you, they're adjoining the complex flavor profiles to terpene profiles, and they're creating classes based on the terpene dominance, as well as the organoleptic testing, meaning how do those terpene profiles actually pan out on the human palate. And they've cross-sected. They've created a cross-section of that information in the flavor categories that I just demonstrated for you off of the Emerald Cup website, okay? So now where are we going? What's the future? Where do we look for the future? So before you look forward, look behind. This is the first thing I teach all of my students. Before you start thinking about, oh, I want to create the next biggest flavor, get your homework done, sir or madam, before you get to that. All these companies that are rolling out, oh, I've got my proprietary cultivar, it's so good. How do you know it's good? Do you know the mother lines well? Do you know the mother lines as they performed in the gray market, the mother lines that won the money, the proof of concept? Do you know those mother lines well? Is your offspring an improvement or a substantial differentiation from the mother lines? Yes or no? And if you can't answer that question correctly, your proprietary cultivar is probably a step backwards, not a step forwards. The majority of the proprietary cultivars that I observe on the market today, I don't want to call them out by name. You know who you are. You're taking beautiful plants like wedding cake and unicorn poop, and you're creating wedding poop. And your wedding poop is actual poop. It's a middle of the ground. It's not here nor there. It's not the unicorn poop, and it's not the wedding cake. It's not as good as the wedding cake, and it's not as good as the unicorn poop. It doesn't really do anything that is remarkable combining those two flavor profiles. It just ends up being dull, middle of the road, nothing to really write home about. That's the majority of the proprietary cultivars that I see on the market today. People that are like so proud, oh, I made a cross of the banana with this and that. I'm like, yeah, dude, but your shit doesn't smell like banana. That means either the original pheno that you used to cross with didn't have banana, or you didn't know how to select for that banana flavor in subsequent generations. You didn't pop enough seeds. You didn't do the work. Okay. So people are like, well, I didn't want banana. I wanted the other flavor. I'm like, okay, well, the other flavor is not there either. And so what you've done is you've reduced the intensity of both the aromas of the mother lines, and you've ended up with something that's less aromatic, less defined, less able to command a price in the market. Remember that plants that command a high price in the market, plants that are highly sought after, are not for no reason. The consumers, yes, the majority of them are completely uneducated in regards to what is good weed, completely don't really know what names mean. But when you give even an uneducated palate fire weed, trust me, they want to come back for more. They don't want to go buy that other shit. And that person that's selling that fire weed gains more and more popularity with that cut, more and more money. They're selling more and more SKUs. It keeps peaking up. And trust me, the people that end up winning out in this market have differentiated, intensified flavors that make the consumer go, wow, it's not just about getting high. So yeah, most of the consumers are just about getting high. But when you bring that extra dimension into your SKU, now it's hot as fuck, it's fire. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to get it. Everybody wants their hands on it. What are those cultivars that did that in the past? That's how you have to start thinking. Before you think about what's coming, learn what happened. Where the fuck is skunk? What happened to skunk? Who's got the skunk? I can tell you where to get skunk nowadays. Most people don't know where to get skunk nowadays. They say skunk is gone. Have you had any Dominion skunk? Have you had any Pepe Le Pew? Those lines that I'm very adamant about, you know, I always talk about those lines because I want to see them in the market. They exist. You can get them. Nobody's bringing skunk to the market. Nobody's brought an original DJ Short blueberry line. Nobody's really selected a phenotype that does what blueberry's supposed to do. Everybody's growing northern berry or like, hey, blueberry yum yum, different story. That is an offspring from the blueberry line that actually does something noteworthy. But if you can't get yourself a subsequent offspring from blueberry that's doing something noteworthy, then get blueberry. Bring blueberry to the market. Do something special. Don't like just select some random plant because you think all plants are random, because you think nobody's knows what they're growing. Don't do that to yourself. Don't shortchange yourself like that, please. I'm telling you, DJ Short created a plant that is a queen. She is outrageously blueberry. You can find her, you can grow her, you can bring her to market. Hell, cut DJ Short a little piece. Remember, DJ Short's not a DJ, that's an abbreviation of his name. DJ Short is a person like you and me. He needs to pay bills. He needs recognition. He needs people to remember him and what he's brought to our culture, what he's taught us. Think about this. Blueberry was one of the first crazy exotics. Man, it was so exotic. It was so out there, outlandish, unlike anything that anybody had ever brought to market. He showed us that this was possible, that you could breed something called something that could actually taste exactly like that, man. Blueberry really taught us that. We forgot the lesson, man. I'm here to remind you today, strawberry is not in our market right now. No strawberry in our market today. No loud, overwhelming, delicious strawberry. Once you have those strawberry lines, you cannot forget them. UK cheese, you cannot forget it. Cat piss, you cannot forget a good cat piss. You cannot forget it. It's people are like, oh, Adolfo, who's going to like cat piss? If you grow a good cat piss, you will answer your own question. Cat piss killed in the market for a reason. The chocolate ties killed in the market for a reason. People have grown bunk-ass chocolopes, and they haven't made a lot of money. And they're like, oh, chocolope isn't that big of a deal. Because you selected a phenotype without knowledge of what the mother line was like. You never knew the chocolope that killed on the street. You never knew. How the hell are you going to bring that to the market? People need to take phenotype selection and genetic line selection 50 times more seriously than they are doing right now. With all these PhDs telling them, oh, it doesn't really matter, man. Grow from seed. It's all the same. People describe weed too much. All weed is kind of the same. That's going to take you to the bottom barrel. That's going to take you to the bottom of the market. If you learn to study these type of profiles that I'm talking about, lavender, man, lavender kush, fuck, so good. The mangoes coming from those South Asians, those South Indian mango from the Kerala region. Oh my God. The first time you have like Kerala gold, the Idukki gold with that crazy mango flavor, and they make crazy hash from that stuff, the Idukki gold hash. Oh my God. Talk to an Indian person about this shit, man. So I tell people, you think I'm crazy? Okay, go. If you have an Indian person that's from Kerala, go talk to them and you tell me if they tell you I'm full of shit. You ask them if temple balls are bullshit, that Himalayan plants don't, the high elevation Indian plants, northern Indian plants don't tend to, and Nepalese plants don't tend to produce some of the most prodigious charas that the world ever seen. Charas, handmade hashish. This stuff is not bullshit. Pineapple, so many people have pineapple phenos in the market today. Pineapple this, pineapple that. I taste it and I'm like, where the fuck is your pineapple, man? Where is it? You say it's pineapple, I can't find it. No. Pineapple can be so loud when you breed for it the right way, man. Delicious. And no. Pineapple Express is not the best pineapple line out there. Please don't make me laugh just because that clown made a movie about that shit. Please. I shouldn't call him a clown. I like him. But point being, you know what I'm saying? That like these movies, they make our culture like laughable. Like it's all about jokes. Pineapple Express sounds so funny. It's all coming from somebody's hard work, from their risk, from their knowledge, from plants that were differentiated to begin with. And we took those differentiated outliers and we created other outliers with them, other plants that had differentiated profiles, notable profiles that we chose to retain. So I put gas with apostrophe here. You know why? Everybody thinks gas is all over the market. I don't think so. I don't think so. We're not even testing for thiols. Nobody is doing gas breeding, skunk breeding the way you're supposed to do it. You want skunk, you got to get 321 MBT specifically. And you got to breed for 321 MBT. And you have to do that consciously. And you have to test for it, refine your subsequent offspring until you get the gas queen. Nobody's really got a gas queen in the market right now. I'm sorry, folks, your pinks, most of them bore me to death, okay? Most of your MK Ultras are a joke. Most of your Death Bubbas are like, yeah, okay. There are a couple of decent Death Bubbas out there that are bringing some decent gas. But I want more gas, man. Way more gas. Not like, oh, I can kind of smell petrol. No. Like, open the jar. My whole fucking house smells like gasoline. That shit. Just like with the skunk. Original skunk, you open that jar, your entire house smells like a dead skunk. What happened to that experience? What happened to that thing that used to happen in my house sometimes in the late 80s? Thanks to my father. So this is why I tell people, you want to get into knowing what's coming, forget about what's coming to start, just look behind. Look behind. So many people don't know about Grape Stomper right now. Man, Grape Stomper is such an amazing line. The wine gum that just hit the illicit market here, some people call it gummy bear, is one of the most prolific novel offshoots from that lineage. And God damn it, the more you keep telling yourself, oh, there's no such thing as Grape Stomper, man, it's all just street talk. Well, you're never going to connect with that queen that provided us with the wine gum. Because if you've tried Grape Stomper, you know where wine gum came from. You know, it's crazy that in a blind tasting, somebody brought wine gum to me. And I knew immediately, I said, just by smelling it in a blind tasting, I said, dude, this is not Grape Stomper. This is a cross off the Grape Stomper line. I know it because it's so Grape Stomper. The grape is it's so grape, man. It's nothing else. It's grape and grape. And then that wine gum is literally the fermented grape in the gummy format. It's just so sweet. It's sweet and wine. So you want to look to the future. Look, not only are you going to study what's been behind that we forgot about, stuff we've left that nowadays is lost popularity. Like I told you, for me to call skunk and cheese or cat piss exotic, it feels wrong because it's so classic. Exotics should be new stuff, rare things that like surprise you, that came out of left field and you're like, what the fuck is this thing? Go to the Emerald Cup website and look at the previous year's winners. You want to know what's coming here to Canada? Go to the Emerald Cup, look at previous year's winners. Look at the flavor profiles that are winning out. Look at the type of plants that are getting the awards. You're going to learn a lot. Look at the past 5 years of winners and you'll be like, oh, GMO was in there. Oh, all these intensified lemon flavors are in there. Oh, all this shit that's becoming popular now. I always tell people in Canada, you want to know what's coming up here? Keep your eye on California. Don't look here unless you're looking at, like, again, specific breeder groups that are killing it. I always want to know what Ryan Lee is up to from Chimera Seeds. The boys up in the Kootenays, their in-house genetics is interesting. I don't like all of their work, but man, they have some amazing plants and obviously some of the most influential breeders in the region. So yeah, we want to look at the most influential cups like the Emerald Cup. We want to look at their winners, okay? All of you right now after the show, go on the Emerald Cup website, click on winners, look at those past winners, get that into your head. If you want to know what to look for, what to hunt for, what should I be putting on my roster, what's coming up next on the street, what's the next thing that people are going to be breeding for or putting on the counter? Emerald Cup, baby, but also the top Cali dispensaries. For me, look, I hang out with Spanish breeders, Dutch breeders, American breeders, Mexican breeders. I know breeders from Morocco. I know Israeli breeders. Tiku Molam, shout out. I know people from all over the world. My cats in California, god damn, they got game, man. It's not just the cultivars, it's how they grow it, it's how they cure it, it's the culture, man, the depth, the thickness of the culture. There's so much of it. I haven't found anything like what I found in Cali, man. It's just so many awesome people and so many awesome plants. I'm not hating on the Canadian scene. I love my Canadian people, my Canadian breeders. It's just that the magnitude of what's going on down there is just incomparable, man. Nobody in the world is like this. So when people ask me, what are the dispensaries you follow? Because I follow their menus. I want to know what they're running out of the menu in Harborside. Numero uno. Harborside has been an inspiration for me since I was a youngin', since I was 19 years old, man. I was like looking at what they were doing down there in California. All of my friends told me Harborside is a place to go. You go and you get treated and you see a menu and you experience what dispensaries were always supposed to be like everywhere in the world. They had this shit down like literally when I went into the 2000s, it was already just peaking. They became one of the first legal dispensaries in California. I think they sold the first legal gram of weed in California. Shout out Mr. D'Angelo. I really, really, really look up to Harborside enormously. There's been other organizations that have been popping up in Cali that I also look at their menus. I look at what breeders are they working with? What are they putting on the counter? Wonderland, From the Earth, Barbary Coast, Kaliva. If you've gone to San Francisco, you've gone to LA, you've gone to all of these little nooks and crannies where these shops are at, and you've in San Jose and you've done some shopping down there, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. You think we got game in Canada? Hell no, we do. Dude, most of our LPs, I'm sorry, they don't even know the first thing about what their company is built around. They still don't understand that it's all about the plant. Plant selection should have, most of these LPs don't even draw up a budget for acquisition of plant material. You know that? They just get whatever the fuck they can get for the lowest price they can get it, because they have a master grower that doesn't know shit about breeding. That's like, oh, I just want seed. I just want that. I just want this. Let's spend $2,000 on acquisitions. Man, you get one opportunity to bring in plants and people are like, let's spend as little money as possible. I'm like, if you would have spent money to get good plants, desirable cuts, desirable seed material, primarily cuts, every single plant that you registered is now an asset that's worth 20 times more than before it was registered in the legal system. So how much a disservice did you do yourself by spending those $2,000 in your plant acquisition, not doing any research, not taking it seriously? You want to see people that take their work seriously, people that understand the culture, people that understand how to sell weed? Check out these people. Check out these people. Go experience what it's like to sell cannabis this way, to stock your menu this way, to work directly with badass breeders, badass producers in your region, to select the top producers in your region. Sorry, but it has a lot to do with who's growing what and who's been developing what genetic and who's growing like what flavor. Flavor profiles are really what drives all of these people's business. They know that. They've always known that. I've always known that. That's what's made me a better dealer from day one. So yeah, you don't just follow the top dispensaries. You follow all of the top breeder groups. You follow all of the top breeders. This is like just a few names of people that I respect. This list could have been 5 pages. I didn't mention any of my more secret go-tos. I gave you one really important one today. I suggest none of you forget Dominion Skunk, Pepe Le Pew. Just look them up. Just go to Seed Finder, look them up. Okay. You want skunk? That's where you find skunk. That's the one little secret one that I'll give you today. These like smaller breeding projects, smaller breeding groups that are doing absolute fire. There's so many of those folks. There's so many of those that are eager, willing to work with you, get you a proprietary cultivar, get you something that is you, that is nobody else, that you can bring to market, something really special. You get that by working with breeders. You don't get that by working with breeders. You don't get that by working with master grower. You don't get that in the fucking boardroom. You get that from working with people that come from this culture, that have sweat, bled, cried to get to where they are. Yeah. And yeah, we're very passionate and a lot of us are divas. And you know, you see how I talk, I'm super street. A lot of people think I couldn't fit within a corporate model. Trust me, I do. And I have, and I will continue to. And it's only those that have the vision to understand who to work with that are going to end up inheriting this business. No one company is going to have everything they need internally. You need to go out and work with people that are badasses, that have proof of concept, that have already won out in the street. They've already proven themselves. And now you're bringing in proof of concept. You're not bringing in some random F1 that has absolutely nobody knows it. Nobody has verified the fact that it's actually desirable. Nobody that has sold pallets of weed into the market, tons and tons of weed into the market, has looked at it and said, dude, this is absolutely going to kill. There's no question that this is going to sell. It's got desirable qualities. Understanding how desirable cannabis can get is something that you only understand if you have exposure to certain bubbles, certain social bubbles. And most of those social bubbles are tied into specific breeder groups. You usually, like here, I've been fortunate enough to, I don't want to say a lot of these people's names because they are great market people, but I've been people from Powell River, people from the Vancouver Island that are some breeders that, fuck man, if I wouldn't have been exposed to their cultivars and their selections and then grown by their grower friends that are the most badass growers in the region, I wouldn't know what the true potential of this plant is. That's why I'm such a critic. I'm a critic because I know what can be done. The same amount of power, the same soil, the same staff, same water, same everything, and your plant could be worth this much instead of being worth that much. So as you can imagine, it's very frustrating for me to watch people banging their head against the wall when I actually know how to fix their fucking problem. And not just me, but a whole community of people out there that actually know what quality is and how weed sells, why weed sells. That's what I do. That's what a cannabis sommelier does. We study the market. We don't tell you what we think. We tell you what the market is saying, what the market is commanding, what the high end is asking for, what the low end is asking for, low cost cannabis, high end cannabis, what does it need to be in order to have this price? That's what we do. We tell you the truth about your quality. So that's pretty much the end of our presentation, folks. I'm gonna pop back into YouTube here for 1 second. Well, okay, I see what's going on. Let me find you. There you are. Okay, everyone. Very much, oh shit. Did I just stop broadcasting at some point here? Okay, no, it is working. I love it. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I can't find the window to close this app. Oh boy. That sucks. I'm just going to stop broadcasting from here. Everyone, thank you so much for joining today. I apologize for my flailing technologically as I usually have. I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. We're going to be presenting Collectors Cup in Edmonton coming up on the 25th of this month. That same weekend, I believe it's 27th and 28th, we are in Edmonton. We are presenting level 1 and level 2. I encourage anyone that is in that region to join us. Remember, Collectors Cup is the cup where you get to bring your own favorite flower, put it to the test, flower bought at the store, and you get to compete with others to see how you do. So again, everyone, thank you so much for your patience today and hanging in there. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I will see you next month for Chronicles 22, subject to be announced. Okay, thank you again.